Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video, we discuss my thoughts on episode 24 of season 2 of ClassicaLoid. For all intents and purposes, the penultimate episode, and the one wherein all of the revolving story around Wa-kun Wagner and his closing himself off, it all comes to fruition by the end of this one. And I love the fact that it was well and truly familial love and acceptance that brought him back around again, that brought him out of his having closed himself off and transformed not only the Ark building, but the surrounding city and everything like that, and endangered everyone with his music, which was kind of the penultimate conglomeration of all of the ClassicaLoid's musiques. And but it was really down, much as I had discussed in my previous episode discussion video, to Kanai, her big sisterly love and compassion and concern for him and wanting to bring him back out of that shell. And she even has to face off against pseudo-doppelganger that is the product of Wagner's own mind, sort of his most primo estimation of what a sister should be, the sort of punk rock aesthetic looking Kanai, who is very much championing the idea verbally against Kanai proper that, you know, his utmost wish is to be recognized as a ClassicaLoid, to wield music and you know, be recognized for that the world over. And Kanai proper, as well as we the viewer actually know that's not the case. What he really wants is familial acceptance from Kyogo, from Himeka, you know, his father and mother respectively, as well as his sister. And Kanai really manages to touch his heart and open him up again. He at first is reluctant and in denial. He's, you know, no, I don't believe you. It's all lies, lies, lies. You know, you don't really respect me or love me or care about me. I'm not really a brother. You know, when you found out I was lying about being actually, you know, a blood relation, you eschewed any care or concern for me and all this kind of stuff. And she has to all but smack him upside his head before then grappling onto him and embracing him and holding him tightly to let him know everything is going to be okay. And I love the fact that amidst all of the spectacular visuals and the transformations each of the ClassicaLoids go through, when they realize that their music has not been well and truly stolen away for good, as they had once assumed, much like, you know, Kyogo has talked about, it's kind of like a fart in the breeze, a fart from the heart. You know, you need but only get back in touch with that again. And it's Motes, spectacularly so, who is the first sort of vestiges of figuring this out when he is listening and really being impacted by Wagner's music. He is the first one to be impacted by the emotions and be able to tap into the artistry of that, the craft that went into that, you know, music as it was composed, and the emotions that were being wrought forth all throughout this transmogrification of their entire surroundings. So he is the first that taps into it and subsequently releases his music and is able to free up Kyogo and Himeka when they are imprisoned. And you know, one by one, each of the ClassicaLoids will come around to this. They'll hear another of their, you know, compatriots' musics coming forth, and this will inspire them. Bak-sama goes through a transformation, you know, sort of like those old Indian visages of like Shiva and things like that, and the multiple arms and all this kind of stuff, glowing gold and, you know, beats. He turns into, like, I don't even, kind of reminded me of Ratfink, if you've ever seen, you know, paintings or animatics of the old Ratfink, like cartoon and things like that. The character Ratfink, looking all punk, multiple piercings in his ears, and just all glowing red and like almost demonic, but more so like a heavy metal version of Beethoven. And each and every single one of the ClassicaLoids subsequently gets back in touch with their music because of this. And that's the thing that I chiefly love. I love that none of them were forgotten. You know, I had spoken about the fact that it's all subsequently been left to Kanai. Kanai is sort of the last vestige of hope in you know, getting to Wagner, affecting him and bringing him back. But I love the fact that they were all working together as a unit, as a conglomeration. All of the ClassicaLoids came together, banded together. They were right there alongside Mitsuru, and you know, Sosuke was kind of left hanging, literally. But Kyogo, Himeka, and Kanai, they were all together to do this, to bring this forth. And so when the other leg finally drops and she is able to affect Wagner, and he is able to once more summon forth his music to save her life in return as they're falling, above the Ark building and down toward the helipad, everything. And there's Kyogo and Himika looking up horrified, like, oh, they're both going to die and whatever like that. No, Wa-kun saves his sister in similar fashion to how she saved him. But there is mom and dad. There is the mother and father looking up at their children, and once they safely land and are deposited on the helipad on the top of the building, that top floor, it's so heartwarming, and I love it. And I love how all the ClassicaLoids managed to get there, and they sort of do like a group portrait, all of them. You have Kyogo and Himika looking on as Wagner is now well and truly accepted, at least in that moment. I don't have to expect the finale episode will go back to sort of status quo, all of the ClassicaLoids arguing amongst themselves again, and absurdity ensuing in Ottawa Manor. But I loved that sort of freeze frame portrait, and how each and every one of the ClassicaLoids successively in the episode had something to do, had something to bring forth in their summoning of their musiques to a cause, to an effect. And as I say, the most spectacular ones, the visuals were spectacular, but the most spectacular transformations were, of course, Moats and his being the first to really tap into it again, Bach-sama completely, transmogrifying, as well as Beethoven, and hearing that Fifth Symphony was just, oh, hell yeah. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. I freaking loved it. I loved how the subtitles actually, included a footnote suggesting, because of all the talk about destiny and fate and all that kind of stuff, how those 4 notes were meant to represent the knocking of fate upon the door, completely and totally answering to that discussion, the idea of Kanai breaking through what Wagner considered his own destiny, and how he had been sort of, left behind and not really taken in for what he amounted to. I also love the little footnote, you have Dovo-chan finally able to confront Kyogo. Why did you make me a hippo? We've been wondering, why was he a hippo? Well, apparently he didn't get made into a hippo. He was a hippo to begin with. Kyogo just wanted another pet. To go along with Hashi, the shoebill, the bird. He wanted another pet, and he wanted a hippo, a pygmy hippo, and just happened to play him, Dvorak's music, and that just kind of happened to turn him into a ClassicaLoid, I guess, air quotes. And it's going to be really interesting to see if Kyogo can keep up with his promise in the finale to be able to change Dovo-chan back to or maybe into a ClassicaLoid, a humanoid, a human. I kind of hope we get to see that. That would be spectacular again as well. And so, I mean, for all intents and purposes, the story is wrapped up. Everything revolving around Wagner, Wa-kun, all that kind of stuff, and all of the ClassicaLoids, including Barazuska and Chekhov, everyone rose to the challenge. Everyone had a part to play. The only one left behind, sadly, was Sosuke. And even at the end, when everything is all said and done, everyone's hunky-dory again, they're all going home, he's still dangling from the outcropping of the building. You forgot me, And I don't half wonder if that's him in the PV, the voiceover, the narration suggesting that this will have motivated him to leave Ottawa Manor and go out in search of finding himself, finding something that he can contribute, because he really kind of didn't contribute anything. He's the only one who didn't. So maybe he's going to go soul searching, as some of our ClassicaLoids have in the past, Schubert and such like that. And but this was a spectacular episode. I keep using that word because, again, the visuals, the characterizations, all of the samplings of music that we were able to get in touch with in this. And there were so many different tracks playing that I daren't try to cover them all. But that's what I love about this series. That's what I love about classical music. And I love even the contemporizations of that. And just, again, the familial acceptance and love that brought about Wagner's saving grace, if you will. And he then returned the favor to his big sister by saving her own life as well. And again, that portrait really signifies how I was left at the end of this episode, with all of the ClassicaLoids together, Kanai there with them, and Mom and Pop, watching from afar and all that kind of stuff. It was just really heartwarming and again, spectacular. So I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below. If you've seen episode 24 of ClassicaLoid Season 2 as well, if you enjoyed it as much as I did, got as much out of it as I did, love it or hate it, anything goes in the comments below. If you didn't happen to enjoy the episode for whatever reason, let me know that. And otherwise, I can't wait to see what happens in the finale. Again, if it answers to my speculations that all hell's going to break loose once again. And it's really kind of bittersweet because I love this series, and who knows if they're ever going to have another season or something like that down the line, or a movie or whatever. I'm thinking it's probably not highly likely, but, this was a labor of love. It all began back in 2016 when I was deathly ill. My body had been ravaged by a staph infection, and I was bedridden, and I started watching ClassicaLoid. A lot of my initial reviews, I wasn't even on camera for them. It took some time into season 1 for me to finally get around to being on camera. And even then you could see I was ailing. I was still suffering and such like that. And that's because of how much of a passion for classical music I've had, a curiosity with it, and music in general, really. But this series brought about, I had one of my first estimations of it was ever relating it to Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, because you had Beethoven being brought out of time to the modern era and like playing like rock and roll, like heavy metal. And initially, in the initial going, even as I was laid up in bed and sick and not being able to be on camera while discussing the series, it was because of how much it tapped into my love of classical music, my fascination with Beethoven, being more introduced as time would go on with other classical composers, and the comedy and the absurdity. I love this series. It is one of my all-time favorite series, and if we never get to see any more of it, that's going to suck, but what can you do? Such is life. C'est la vie. But again, I'd love to hear what you thought of this series on whole, and save the overview for the finale episode. But just let me know what you thought of this episode and what you thought of the story thus far. If you've enjoyed it, love it or hate it, as I say. And yeah, otherwise it'll be pretty much it for me on this. If this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.